Okay, folks, let's begin. So today we're going to talk about what to expect from this training program that you and I are going to put together. So basically, the idea is that you have a given amount of time to train every day and every week towards your goal, and we want to maximize that by making it a structured training instead of just say go out and ride for 2 hours and then you'll be good. No, things never happen like that. Maybe when you're starting out, but usually it involves some more structured training from amateur level all the way up to Olympic athletes level. Just a little bit about myself. I've been an athlete myself for my entire adulthood, and I've worked from Division 1 level, Division 3 level, and in national team level, Olympic team level in rowing. And the rowing and cycling have a very close correlation between what kind of athletes that they're looking for, except the body weight might be a little bit different. But basically, we're looking at two very similar sports. Being a cyclist myself and having done an Everesting on the Everest, I have a little bit more experience than I would say a lot of cycling coaches. And now let's just get started. So the whole idea is that we're building towards a goal. For you, you need to know that why you're riding in the first place, because that why question is going to come out when you're pushing through a hard workout or you're in the midst of a hard training cycle and you're asking yourself, why the heck am I doing this? And usually the answer is, I don't know. And if that's an I don't know, and then you're just going to give up. Instead, you just say, right, I'm training for this goal, and I want to finish it, and I want to see my goals through. So if that's the mentality, then you'll find extra energy when you need to push through. So that comes down to goal settings. In our one-on-one sessions, I'm going to help you identify those goals, and from there, we're going to map out how you're going to get there. For instance, this year, my goal was to go to the Alps and do the Haute Route Alps. Not likely, but I'm still build my training around that, and we can go into more details when we look at the training program that I planned for myself, and it'll pretty much be the same that you guys are going to work with me to come up with a structured training program. So my whole spiel is that you need to treat yourself as an athlete. Being an athlete is not about being well endowed or that. It's all in your mind. So you need to think of yourself as an organism that has a lot of potential, and we are. So in that respect, everybody can improve, and they can always reach their own potential and become the best version of themselves. And for me, that's more important than say winning an Olympic gold medal. And trust me, even for athletes who win Olympic gold medals, who I've worked with, usually they need to have this kind of mindset to move beyond their own capabilities at any given point. So there's a saying, pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. What it means is basically there are going to be tough times in your training, and your body might really be in pain when you're training from the lactic acid building up in your muscles. And when these moments come, usually there are two choices. One, let the pain overrule your mind, and then you're gonna start to suffer because the pain is occupying all your mind space. And I advocate on the second mindset, which is you can choose to suffer, or you can choose to just see pain as one part of your sensations and let it come and go. It's not going to be less painful per se, but it's a different mindset where you can choose to say, all right, I acknowledge the pain is here, but I'm going to push through anyways because I have goals that depend on me achieving each workouts that JJ has prescribed. So if we look at how our body work is that you have a homeostasis capacity, and this homeostasis capacity is where you are at the moment. What we're doing is when we're doing workouts, we're pushing your body's limit, and your body is going to get the signal that right, we want to go a little bit harder. So when you're resting and recovering, you're going to get better. So your capability eventually is going to get to the second ring, and hopefully third ring and the fourth ring. It's just like Beijing, right? And they build the second ring, and then they have the third ring and fourth ring and fifth ring. It's a living organism. So the best practices here is actually to have a power meter and a heart rate monitor. Having the power meter is basically the ultimate way to quantify your training. And having worked at the highest level, I can tell you people are really specific with the amount of time they spend in each intensity, and that trickles down to to amateur levels as well. So I'm a big advocate on having a power meter and having a heart rate monitor, but these two things serve different purposes. Power meter is basically telling you the kind of work you're doing, and heart rate monitor is to monitor how your body is reacting to the work that you're doing. And so it reacts pretty slowly. So if you're going really hard, you're going to find your heart rate is actually catching up to you while you're doing the work. And second best practice, I guess, is to have a heart rate monitor, and third is to go by feel. But rest assured, before heart rate monitors and power meters were invented, people were still cycling, and the greats like Eddie Merckx never used power meters, and they still ride really, really fast. So yes, you can do it with pen and paper. So what do Olympic athletes do nowadays is that there are people who track their training, and they can quantify them to the degree that they know exactly what they did 6 weeks ago are correlating to how they're feeling today. And that comes from experience as well. So it's not something that you can build just by doing training for 2 weeks, because what you're doing for training is that you're collecting a lot of data points, and with these data points then you can correlate what you're doing these days to how you perform in your event on your event day. And the more data points that you have, there are more evidence to show you what you did was right and what you did was wrong. What a coach can help with, in this instance me, is that I can look at your data and tell you, right, you did this right, and you did this right, and you did that wrong, and then we want to progress from here to the next training phase with this amount of volume and this amount of intensity. And this is all a little bit more arts and sciencey, and we're going to talk about it when we're having our one-on-one meetings. But just rest assured that all these things, they are not rocket science. You just need to get a few principles right. And let's look at the best practice example. So I'm going to use myself as an example. So I pulled up this platform that's called Trainer Road. This is the platform that I've been using since I started cycling. I started training with a power meter. So basically you can see in cycling you can quantify your training stress, which means the amount of work that you're doing, to points called the training stress scores. So if you look at these, for each workout, I have a training stress score added up. So you can see the trends here. Usually, you have a higher trend for a while, and then you drop down for recovery, and then you build up again, and then there's recovery. Obviously, life gets in the way, and it's really hard to be robotic about it. But if you see things like this, it's a nice, very 4 weeks of build and 1 week rest, and build and rest. And obviously, this was during the World Championships for rowing, so I had to cut down my training and then go help the team. And to assess the fitness that you get, usually we use this thing called functional threshold power, which aka FTP. You hear a lot of people talk about, and we use that as a metric to track how fit you are. It's not an end all and be all, and it depends on the kind of athlete that you are. To really understand what FTP means to you. For instance, if you have a 300 watt FTP, but sometimes a person with a 300 watt FTP can go at 295 watts for 8 hours. But that's not the case for everyone. So we need to individualize training. And that's one of the reasons that you need to work with the coach, because the coach knows there are different types of athletes and each of them will respond to different kind of trainings. So if we look at these dots, these are my FTP's history. So they track really nicely usually throughout my season, and so you can see an upward trend that we started from where? We started from 300. Yeah, we started from 300 and now we're at 349. And this is through a span of, that's how many years? 2 years. So you can see it can progress quite dramatically, but it doesn't progress that quick. So within a season, let's see, last year I started at 310, and then I finally got to 339. That's the end of the season. And this year, I started at 339, I guess, and then we're now at 349. So as you progress through the ranks, it's really hard to have big gains like I did here or here when I had like 200 something FTP and then you progress. But the point is, you can always progress. So that circle can always get bigger. Even if your FTP doesn't move, doesn't mean the amount of time you can spend at your FTP cannot change. So that's also a different part of your training. Now, if we just click on one of those weeks, right? So if I click on this week, and then it's going to pop out, what I did in the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? So with all these points, you can basically you have the data to look back at, and you can correlate either your fitness or your racing results correlating to these. And that's why I'm a big advocate on having a power meter and to track the data that you're collecting. I'm not saying that you definitely need this. It is an investment, but it's good to have. And as you get more serious, these things are going to be very useful. If you don't have these things, you can always use pen and paper. But you do need to record what you're doing, how you're feeling, and what you eat, and how you're hydrating. These things, they are as much as for me and as they are for you. Because at the end of the day, you are the athletes. You need to be very proactive in your own training. I am here as a resource for you to draw on, but if the dynamic becomes, hey, are you going to do the training, or how many training sessions are you finishing? As if I'm checking in on you. I mean, I can check in on you, but usually it's the athletes who take responsibility of their own trainings that usually do the best. And think about it this way: you set your own goal and you want to achieve it. And if you are the person who's driving the whole process, then it's more enjoyable than having someone beating on your neck and say, you got to do this and you got to do that, right? And at the thick of the race, if you're the one who's like, yeah, I wish my coach is here to make me go harder, then that's a completely different dynamic. I think we don't need to get into that kind of dynamic. So another thing that correlates from power and heart rate are zones. So I'm using this 7-zone model. There are a lot of different models of zones, and they're all very useful. I'm using this because it's very familiar to me. So you have power zones and you have heart rate zones. So basically for for us, the majority of the training we're doing are in endurance zones. And then you will get some training in these zones. And these, usually you touch upon them, and they're really important in road races. And they're very useful as well, but you just cannot do a lot of them. What I mean is, if you do a lot of them in training, you're going to burn out. And then you're going to be lying on the couch for a week before you can go out and train again. So, go from zone 1 to zone 7. They get progressively harder, and they take longer to recover as well. But you can also see these are the times usually that you can do them. So, if you do active recovery, you can do 70 to 80 years, which means you're always actively recovering when you're living, right? And then endurance, you can do 2.5 hours to 14 days, something like that. So the rhythm of training, what I'm talking about is, this is your current fitness. And then when we're training, you actually go down to here. So your body actually gets broken down. But by recovering, which is eating, sleeping, and taking nutrition at the right time, you recover and you get to a new fitness. And it goes like this in waves. And you want to be here when your goal event hits, or you want to be here, you don't want to be down here. And this is as much as an art as it is in science. So you need someone else who has experience to walk you through this. But obviously, you need to be in charge of your own training. And I'm here to help you. And you can ask me, and you can correlate your feelings in training sessions to this. It's a model, but it's general. So everybody is different. So the logistics of this whole training coaching thing is that first, we need to clarify your goals, and then we need to have a one-on-one conversation to map out your plan, and then we need to specifically map down the amount of time you have for each day and come up with a training strategy for you that works for you, works for with your life, and works with the current setup that you have. And obviously, we can talk about purchasing equipment, which is always a nice thing to do, but you also need to maximize the use of them. And then we need to have a training plan worked out and train. Obviously, that's your part. And ideally, you and I work out a once a week check-in, and then we find out what we're going to do with next week's training. So you need to figure out what went well, what didn't go well, and what can we do better next time. And then we need to have preparation specifically for your events towards when we're going towards the event. So that's gonna be covered in our one-on-one sessions. And then you go race, ride, have fun. That's the most important part. And then you rest and refresh and hit it again. So that's the overview of what we're going to do when we're working together. I hope this is informative. If you have questions, please leave behind. I'm putting this on YouTube because the video file is definitely going to be too big. And I think this might be a useful format to go with in order to, in terms of doing group coaching, because I do plan on having things like nutrition or recovery, all these topics. Right now we probably cannot deliver them in person, so probably I'm able to deliver them online, and I think YouTube is probably going to be the best channel, and you can comment and I'll respond down below. It's very easy. So leave your question and answers below. Oh, and also this channel will have some vlogs coming from my writing. So I'm trying to build a little bit of feeling of community here. So if you guys could like and comment on YouTube, it's going to help with the algorithm. Obviously, the goal is not to become one of the internet celebrities yet, but you guys will be part of this journey. Anyways, I hope you understand what I was talking about. And once you've decided to sign up, and we can chat face-to-face, one-on-one, it'll all become much more clearer. And that is it. I will talk to you guys soon.